Did you know that the Bible is the only religious text which says the popular phrase, God is love? I'm sure you heard about that, right? Like, God is love. We know that right from the Sunday school, and we know that from Hallmark cards, and we know that from bumper stickers, and every person I know, irrespective of the religious affiliation or political affiliation, they always use that phrase because it has become such a cliche in our popular culture. God is love. But did you know that the Bible is the only sacred text which says that? Particularly the New Testament. It comes from 1 John 4:8, and then again it's repeated in 16, I believe. The reason I'm saying this is, why that phrase is not found in other religious texts or in other religions or other conceptions of God in exactly the same way. I'll tell you why. Because love is a loaded term, right? The moment you use the L word in a relationship, you know that it is going to a step in which you have to be vulnerable. That's why people hesitate to say the L word, as people say that. Because the moment you choose to love somebody, you are opening up the possibility of being affected by the object of your love. There is a possibility of rejection. There is a possibility of hurt. A genuine love cannot exist, at least without the possibility of suffering. And that's why we have another axiomatic phrase in our culture which says, love hurts or love suffers, right? Because the moment you choose to love somebody, you choose to suffer for that person or suffer because of that person. I can say that I am a very loving person. I love my family. I love my friends. I love you. But if you do something that I don't approve of, if you say something that I don't like, I can unlove you just the way that I can unfriend you on Facebook or something like that. Because I am loving, but I am not love. Because if I am love, then I'm not talking about it as an adjective. It is in the fundamental essence of my being. When I am love, I cannot not love. Does that make sense? If I am truly love, then I cannot unlove somebody. Now that is the problem. If God is loving, that's fine. He can be merciful. He can be compassionate. We can do all these things without being affected by the other person. A merciful person can be a patronizing person. We can be compassionate in the way like a benevolent dictator could be compassionate. But when you say love, then again, you have to love even the unlovable. That is the problem. If God is love, He cannot not love. Which means that if God is love, He is intrinsically connected to suffering, or suffering is at the core of His being. And that no religion, including the so-called Christian religion, cannot conceive. See, this is the predicament of God that brought us to the mystery of the cross. Now, it is on the cross you see the dilemma of God. Because God is love, He has to love the object of His wrath. That is why the cross became necessary. Because on the cross of Christ, you see God's love embraces what His law condemns. His grace accepts what His holiness rejects. Now that is the paradox of the cross. Only the Christian God can say God is love because only the Christian God has ended up on the cross, because cross is the essence of suffering and cross is at the heart, at the core of love. And I'm going to conclude with a little story I know from India. The story comes from one of the Indian texts, sacred text. This is the story of a holy man in India, or a sage in India. He was bathing in a river, and then he saw a scorpion drowning in the water. And the sage just got out of the water after bathing. Then he leaned over, he grabbed the scorpion so that hoping that he can save the scorpion. But the moment the sage touched the scorpion, it stung the sage. And he withdrew his hand and the scorpion started drowning again. But then sage again leaned over and grabbed the scorpion so that he can save it. But the scorpion stung him again. And this happened again and again, and the sage was writhing in pain, and the venom of the scorpion was going through his vein, but he still started trying to help the scorpion. So on the other side of the river, there is a fisherman watching all this, and he said, "Hey sage, what is wrong with you? How can you try to save this ugly, ungrateful creature? Let it drown. It is not worth saving. It is in its nature to sting, so don't try to save it." So the sage looked at the fisherman and said, "Yes, you are right. It is in a scorpion's nature to sting, but it is in a sage's nature to save." Just like the scorpion cannot change its nature, a sage also cannot also escape from his nature. It is in a scorpion's nature to sting, but it is in a sage's nature to save. That is exactly what happened on the cross. As ugly and ungrateful as I am, as evil to the core my nature is, God on the cross was not just a merciful God. God on the cross was just a compassionate God. God on the cross was not just a loving God. God on the cross was love. So he kept on reaching out to me. And that is the mystery of the cross. As we are approaching this season of Lent, whoever is listening to me, I don't know where you are, I don't know who you are, but if you haven't experienced the fullness of this cross, what happened on the cross, what that means to you, this is your moment. And somebody loves you to the extent of being rejected by your love, and somebody rejected to the extent of being crucified for you. Would you take a moment in gratitude, accepting that love which is freely offered to you on the cross?